Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Torchwood episode Ghost Machine, written by Helen Reiner in her first script. She was actually a script editor for Russell T Davies during the first and second series of Doctor Who. So this was her first pure script, which is very nice. And it's also the first story directed by Colin Teagan, who'd later go on to direct episodes for both Torchwood, Doctor Who, and I also believe he did a Sarah Jane Adventure episode as well. This is the third episode in the series, and it's the first one really not to focus on Gwen Cooper. This story is actually a Owen story, or at least for the second half of it. Now, for the past two episodes, I feel like a part of me is a bit more critical to these stories than they really deserve. The last two stories just didn't click with me in that sense, with Everything Changes being a good opening to the series, but had a lot of issues, and Day One had a lot of flaws, and to the point where, despite I did get into the rhythm of it, it for the most part failed. Now, Ghost Machine, the story right off the bat is something that felt right up my alley. A much more personal tale of characters getting highly invested in investigations that happened many years ago due to this device. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Most people consider this the first good episode of Torchwood, and I totally agree. So I'm in the the majority of people who enjoy this. But I don't think it's perfect. I think there's still a lot of things, a lot of issues to tackle in with this story, which we'll get into. There's not really much to talk about it behind scenes there, apart from really that this is the first story written by its writer and the first story directed by its director. So can they pull it off? Can they make a great, compelling story? Or was it a case of baby steps for their careers? Well, we're going to have to find out. But before that, like always, I have the official Season 1 Torchwood box set, which I've shown before in the series. Really nice, really cool. Massive thank you to Gwen, who gave me this. So Gwen, if you're watching, thank you very much. And as well, from some of these episodes, because they bundled each episode up with together, so it's kind of annoying, but this was actually the first story in its disc. So, I got my own DVD cover for it. Hooray! I can't remember who designed this. I just picked it out off the internet. If you just type in Torchwood DVD covers on the internet, on Google. The only thing I changed really is that I believe it was a picture of Torchwood logo or Jack's face. I've replaced it for the TARDIS because I've reserved that spot for the Doctor. Any story that doesn't have the Doctor gets the TARDIS. So there's that. I can't remember if I stated that in my Everything Changes video, because I talked about the cover on that one. But yeah, so there's the cover if anyone's interested, with Gwen Cooper and Owen Harper right there. Very nice. Here's the spine if anyone's interested. Really, I should do like a collection video when after all of these are done. And here's the back, showing the scenes from the episodes, and also, because it shares its disc with two other stories, also includes the episode Cyberwomen and Small Worlds. Actually, I think it's Cyberwoman. I think there might be a spelling error on the back of this. That's really embarrassing for me personally. Ha ha ha! But there you go. So that's my DVD cover that I made for it. But what about the story itself? I kind of gave away that I enjoyed the story, so I can't really tease if it's like a bad thing, but how much good is it? Does it deserve your time and your patience? Well, let's delve into the adventure. The story starts off, in my opinion, with a very, very weak action scene. We have pretty good music by Murray Gold kicking in, but basically the torture team are chasing a alien signal which Toshika has discovered on her monitors. It turns out this alien signal is coming from this seemingly teenager. I think he's a teenager anyway. He's a very young man, and they're chasing him around Cardiff's Queen's Arcade. Yeah, and right off the bat, this isn't a great start, a great opening, as the action scene seems way too overdone, way too dramatic. It seems like something which should really, this seems like an action scene which really is edited and played off for something that should be near the end. But the way it's edited together right at the start, it kind of gives this story, and Torchwood in general really, this kind of cheesy sci-fi detectives corniness about it. So right off the bat, we're not on a great start. Gwen gets to the boy alone and takes his jacket, discovering that the alien signal has come from this device. And when she presses it, everyone seems to disappear around her as she witnesses a boy. But she doesn't just witness him, she feels his emotions, his loneliness. And he seems to be wearing some period costume, something like a 1940s schoolboy. And the boy cries out that it's alone and nobody knows who he is in this place. When Gwen returns back to normality after releasing her finger from the button, she states she's seen a ghost, leading into our credits. The opening of it, I feel it's really, something just didn't click with me here, and I was really worried to getting into this story, especially on a rewatch, because I was like, oh god, what if this is not as good as I remember it? The editing, the directing here felt really offbeat, and it just moved too quick in terms of its pacing, of its building up of its time here. But this is what I think about Call. I know I'm going straight into what I think about the directing in this story, but I think just right after a very good example of how what he does works at his worst, I think it's best to go into the detail first. Colin Teagans, I feel like, at least from this story, I haven't seen any of his stories in a while, so I'm basing my entire opinions of his directing on this story, which I should do because, I'm talking about this story. When he does action scenes that need the quicker pace, the quicker environment, like later on there's a scene between Owen chasing that boy again. There's like a montage later on of Jack and Gwen firing guns. I feel like he really loses the nail there, and his directing is so overdone. A lot of moving cameras, a lot of zooms in, zooms out, some really quick editing, which could be the editor's fault. It could be that they just didn't have enough shots, feeling that the quicker pace would keep the viewing interested, but it makes it feel like they don't expect you to have a long attention span, and makes this story and Torchwood in general really a very corny environment, like this is something to be embarrassed about. But luckily, the story also shows his great strengths. For you see, he might be very weak at the quicker paced scenes and his quicker paced action scenes. He is very, very good at showing us the slower moments, the moments which our characters need to take time to breathe. In terms of directing, in terms of narrative, we'll get onto that when we talk about it. But there's some really great shots when things start to slow down and cool and relax. And I feel like that's where his strengths really rely. And I think, luckily, we paired him with a story which isn't really action-based. There's not any aliens. It is more of a thriller, a mystery subplot using this alien device that makes you see the past, in a sense. We later learn that it has this, it's a basically it's an energy transformer, transforming feelings, emotions into memories, into visions, or what people see. Now the story is written in a very oddly paced fashion, not just including the opening scene. The story starts off with Gwen basically investigating who that little boy is, and she soon quickly discovers who this person is. They track him down, who's now an old man, and he quickly tells the story of how during the Blitz he was evacuated to Cardiff, near the countryside, so he would be safe from German bombers. And so Gwen quickly puts a nail in that coffin and finishes that subplot as the torture team try finding for the young man who they found the device from, wondering where he got this technology, and more importantly, has he got any other technology like it? So, and who is he? You know, is he an alien? Is he a threat? We don't know. So the tortured team go searching for him. They kind of give up because they kind of struggle to find him, and so they wander around and they find themselves underneath a bridge where Owen, who now has the device, clicks on it, which we kind of get the impression. I love how it's not stated, but we get the impression by the actors, both by the actress who plays Gwen and now the actress who plays Owen, that when this device is activated, when it's triggered, you kind of get like this impulse, like it compels you to press the device, because later on, like, nobody else is compelled to do it. And later scenes with Gwen again, you kind of get this impulse to press this device. And I think that could have been really confusing if it wasn't for the actors doing a great job at giving off this compulsion to press the button. And Owens witnesses a dark event. He witnesses a woman crying her hearts out in 1963 clothing as she talks about this dirty, horrible man. What's his name? Ed Morgan, something like that. As this man then tracks her down underneath the bridge and rapes and kills her. But this device not only makes you witness these events, but makes you feel them. So Owen feels the terrified nature of this woman. And so this affects him personally. And this is a great plot for two reasons. One, this story actually is probably the first story in the series that actually deserves to be adult content. This is a story where you could technically tell it in a Doctor Who story, you know, device that makes you feel, and you get witness to a murder, and so you got to track it down as it messes with your head. But with an adult sensibility, with an adult maturity to it, it gives this story a new lease of life. It's not like in the previous story where it feels like the adult, mature content was forced into the story to go, hey, we're mature, we're adult, please take us seriously. But here it's like, no, okay, we're railing it back. We're using the mature adult content to tell our story, to show this dark event that is really going to affect our character. Two, this story then takes Owen to a whole new light. In the first 2 episodes, he was basically the comic relief. He didn't have much of a personality up to this point. But again, as I've stated in my Everything Changes video, that's fair enough. This series, Torchwood, has a massive cast of characters. It's not like Doctor Who, where you only have 2 to follow around, and so we need to get introduced to them quickly. With Torchwood, because it's a full group of people, you can save up characters, episodes for particular stories. So this is Owen's story, and his character, his humour prior to the story, where he has a kind of fed up attitude with anything. He doesn't play by the rules. He basically thinks with his dick rather than his head, kind of attitude. This character trait, this him basically going obsessed with this case, this murder mystery of this woman who died back in 1963, but her murderer was never found, was never caught, and but he can still kind of feel those emotions, and so he does his best to try and track him down, and that plays into it really well. But remember my remark when I said this story is very oddly placed? Well, everything I've just said, everything I've just discussed, happens within the first 15 minutes of the episode. And I checked, I paused it as soon as a roundabout when Owen breaks out of his compulsion in his landscape underneath the bridge. 15 minutes have passed. 15 minutes where Gwen has basically completed her little plot with the boy, and Owen now starts off his adventure. Now, don't get me wrong, I think this was actually a good decision. Usually in these kind of cases where you do have this kind of first plot and second plot, most writers would have it so half the episode is on one plot, but half the episode is on the other. But here, I feel like the first half didn't need a lot of time. You know, it's just the boy, and it basically sets up the device at hand, as we get to learn what it does, what makes you feel emotions even when people are still alive. They're not actually ghosts. It's more of the residual energy of emotions that survive when you are in a place. Deja vu, the feeling of someone standing behind you when you are in a completely empty room. That kind of residualness of the characters. That's what this device does. It allows you to see those moments, basically see into the past. If you want to be, if you don't want to be technical about it. So Gwen's little subplot sets it up, leading into the Owen subplot, which takes the majority of the plot. And though Gwen still has a lot to do, in terms of her as a character, she kind of takes the responsibility later on about the young man who they track down again after Owen pays a visit to the murderer. He found the murderer. And when I said earlier about Colin Tegan's directing, that scene when Owen goes into the murderer's house and he first starts off lightly as like he pretends to be this gas man, and then he tells him to sit down. The scene is so goddamn intense. And when it keeps cutting to people's hands, when you see Owen tapping because he's impatient, when you see the hands of the murderer who you can see him like sweating, struggling, and it all those zooms up on those face. That scene, I don't think it could have been directed any better. That is so intense. I had my heart racing. What's going to happen? Is Owen going to kill him? Is he going to attempt to kill Owen? What's going to happen? It makes you really at the edge of your seat. That is great television. But, you know, the story isn't always well written, despite it having some really great moments like that. Later on, they track the boy down after Owen just suddenly just stumbles on him, which is something which I think is a criticism for every Tortured episode so far. Characters just sort of stumble onto very important details. Like with Gwen, just so happens to be at the same hospital that Torchwood is. Similar things happen in Day 1, which I can't really remember at the moment because that story, the sooner I forget about that story, the better. And here, Owen just sort of walks past the thing, and the boy is there. There's kind of an explanation later on. We later learn that this boy has also been basically blackmailing the old man after he used the device and also discovered what happened under the bridge. So, but the connection isn't really sort of there, and the way it's edited, the way it's paced, the way the story is structured, it just kind of feels like Owen just sort of happens to appear at the same place, and it's just like that's a massive coincidence. But anyway, to get into what I wanted to talk about, they track him down. They discover that they just found the boy. They discover that there is another device, one which the boy only used once and will never use again because it showed him when he died, and when he dies, he's going to die young, just outside the alleyway, just outside his block of flats. And there's a scene then where they're downstairs in Tortured basement, they're discussing what's going on. Jack is angry, I can't remember why. I think there's a good reason in it, I can't remember. But this leads into one scene which I have huge criticisms with. And that is the scene in which Jack teaches Gwen how to fire a gun. What a strange scene. I think I don't know if it's the writing or the directing of it, but clearly there was some lack of communication there. What the hell am I supposed to feel during this scene? So basically, let me tell you what happens. Jack gets angry at Owen because, you know, he can't keep his emotions intact, he can't keep his thing, you know, and he shouts at him, it's like, go home, and we're gonna find out what's happening with this alien device, but you're really not in your headspace, so go home. Gwen, now you come with me. And you think, right, maybe they're gonna discuss something about Owen or learn something, and so Jack takes Gwen to a firing range where they practices to learn guns, because Gwen in an earlier episode has stated she's never used a gun. Yes, she worked as a police, but a British police officers don't usually carry guns. So she gets basically learned how to teach a gun by Jack. But Jack is very sexually onto her, if that makes sense. Like, he's touching her arms, he braces her neck, braces her head across her neck, he grabs her waist, tells her to breathe, and I don't know what the hell that's all about. And don't get me wrong, Evelyn Myers is a fantastic actress. She is great as Gwen. But here, I feel like there was something here that wasn't clicking. Maybe she was given some poor directing choice, because what are we supposed to feel here? If you take it scene, the first time you watch this, think what Gwen is thinking at this moment. Is she enjoying it? Is this supposed to be a romantic scene between Gwen and Jack? Are they implying that there is some sort of relationship between them? Or is Jack sexually harassing his co-workers? Is he taking not advantage of her, but getting really hands-on, and she's feeling really uncomfortable? Like, what's going on in that scene? Like, I guess it's supposed to be romantic because she never brings it, and when she fires the gun, she's like, oh, wow, as if like this is like an amazing experience for her. But I don't know, it just feels really off, especially how we haven't had this kind of Jack and Gwen kind of have a thing going on. I believe this is like the only time in series 1 where this happens. It's really strange, it's really bizarre. And I don't understand it. I feel like this scene was originally meant for Gwen and Owen due to later episodes, which I'll get onto when I talk about those episodes. But for some reason they replaced Owen with Jack. This is just a theory, by the way. And that kind of subtext, the idea, the plot that this character arc, this thing is going to, is now just completely lost. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if this what's happening in this scene. It just feels really odd, really out of place. I did kind of feel a bit uncomfortable. Like, Jack is her boss, and he's like basically touching her up. Like, what? I mean, I get it. I mean, you know, Jack, he's a very sexually active character who, you know, he will tap anything if it breathes. But the fact that Jack knows that Gwen has a boyfriend and that, you know, this kind of relationship has never been implicit before, like she's not going to start an affair with Jack, it does feel very odd. It feels so bizarre, and I don't understand it one bit. This then leads into the montage of her training with the guns, which, like I've said, the more quicker action-packed, I say an action-packed, but the quicker pacing scenes of this adventure don't work, as Toshika and Owen are talking in the bar. Actually, I'm trying to remember what's going on. Gwen, I can't remember how we get leads into scenes. I've literally just watched. I'm making this video just after I've watched this episode, and I'm struggling to remember it. Well, it's not a criticism on the story; it's a criticism on my memory. But anyway, Gwen activates the device at one point, and she sees herself holding a knife up with blood all over her hand, saying that she couldn't stop it. Owen had the knife. He was planning on killing him, but I had no choice. And this, you know, obviously freaks out Gwen, and Jack is like, that's only one of possible futures. And Gwen then goes to the boy's house to basically be like, right, what you saw, because he used the device and he saw apparently his own death, that's only one possibility of many. That's only one possibility. It might, most likely won't happen. It could happen, but most likely it won't. As Toshika and Owen, Owen's talking about like how he met up with the murderer from his investigation earlier in the day, and he remembers something. He remembers him saying, "Nah, don't come back again," or not something like, "I've told you before." She's like, "Hold on, I've only been there once," and then it clicks. That boy, he was blackmailing him because he already knew about the situation as well. So, so he's been blackmailing him, and whilst the torture team are tracing the boy because he knows a little bit more than he's saying, the murderer actually leaves his house and plans on murdering the boy as he gets his knife out and thing. But Gwen is there to protect him. So there's all this tense scenes as Jack and Owen, they jump on the old man behind him as Owen gets a hand of his knife. And then we get a really good scene, a really intense scene as Owen is like, because, you know, he's felt these emotions. He knows that this man is a murderer and a rapist. And not only that, he got away with it. He was never convicted. And he gets really intense. He puts the knife up to the guy's face. It's like, you felt like you didn't have a choice, but you still did it. What if I did it? Huh? Do you think I would feel any remorse, any pity? Unlike you, would I? And Owen puts the knife down. It's like, I couldn't do it. And Gwen picks up. It's like, we did it. Nobody died. As the man is like, he runs up to Gwen. Apparently, I think he says thank you. But he runs into the knife, killing him dead. And so Gwen's vision of the future transpires. She's holding a knife with blood all over her hands, just full of shock, as she's basically taken her first life by complete accident, mind you. But it still is something that's very personal because, you know, she's never killed before. I felt like the stuff with Owen in that scene worked very well, but I feel like the stuff with Gwen, like, the guy just kind of ran into the knife. Like, I mean, I guess it does kind of happen, but the way the scene plays out, it's very bizarre. It feels like, I don't know, they let the state, like, when trying to cheer up Gwen, because, you know, this has traumatized her, that he was very suicidal. They mentioned this earlier on in the episode. He had a few attempts on his own life, and so, you know, it was only a matter of time before somebody else did it. You know, it wasn't your fault. And the last moments of this story, the last directed scenes of this story, speaking of directed scenes, I just remembered one of my favourite moments in this episode where Gwen goes home and she has the memory device, so she clicks it and she sees all the good times she had with her boyfriend Reese. Before Reese comes back after they've had a sort of a small little argument about her not coming home due to her work in the night. And like, he doesn't know like if she's coming back or not. Or if she is coming back for him. That's just a really great moment, a really great scene. Had to bring that up. But anyway, the closing moment is Jack and Gwen on the bay, on Cardiff Bay, just before the sunrise, as they're talking about, like, it's a brand new day, you can't beat up yourself over it. The city will be awake soon, full of those people, full of lives, as Gwen points out, with this, thanks to the device, that a lot more ghosts in the city as well, a lot more memories that will disappear, that will be forgotten about. And the story ends with them kind of hugging as they're kind of looking out into the distance of the bay, which is just looks absolutely stunning, and again it fades into black. So that is The Ghost Machine. Pretty decent story. It's a very good story. I still don't think it's in quality. I think the story is still trying to find the series is still trying to find its feet. You can feel that in a few scenes in a few places. I feel like the story isn't very well handled when it talks about its quicker scenes. I also feel like there's a lot of strange moments, like the scene in the gun ranch where Gwen and Jack are practicing the fire weapons. But there are some really good moments, mainly to do with Owen and his obsession and him basically revealing to maybe not to himself, but to the audience, this much more darker personality to him, which makes him a much more interesting character and makes you realise, right, he's a lot more than just the comedic character of the group. So there's a lot of things to enjoy in this story. I say check it out, make your own assumptions, and overall just enjoy the adventure. It's, you know, it has a lot of great ideas, a lot of great themes, a lot of great stuff to talk about, with obsessions and all that. Just mind you that not all of it is great. If you can get past some of the weaker bits, the weaker moments, then I think you would have a great time with this story. So there you go, that's The Ghost Machine. So join me next time when, after Martha has had a trip to the past, we now go into the future, as the traffic jams are still a problem. So join me next time for Gridlock, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!